Welcome to the Chronic Health Collective. This just isn't a community, it's your fresh start. We've gathered the best coaches and experts to help you reclaim your energy, heal from the inside out, and live with purpose. So, whether you're longing for more energy, deeper healing in your relationships, or a life that feels more aligned and fulfilling, you're not alone anymore. Hi, my name is Jessica Hammock, your trauma recovery and transformation coach, and I will be with you tonight talking about this topic of grateful, grounded, and triggered, navigating trauma and connection during the holidays. So, I've actually had a list of clients who have submitted questions that they really felt like we would love to hear your feedback on. We would love to know more about some of these topics and how do we approach all of the things that people are suggesting. So much of what happens when we watch social media and other platforms around us, when we have people speaking into our lives, they're like, well, you should do this and you need to try this. And I did this. And I first and foremost want to say the thing is we're all individual and unique. And so there are some things that we will try that others have tried that work great for us. And there are other things that we try that we find don't work. And so no matter what someone suggests, it's important to start out knowing that you are individual, that you are unique, and it is not a one size fits all approach when it comes to healing and navigating this journey. So, I'm going to address some of the topics that came in from my platform and the individuals that I work with. And I would love to hear back from you how this what questions you might have, or how this might land for you, or how do you navigate this idea of being grateful or grounded, or are you still stuck and triggered? So, one of the first questions that came in was this idea of why or what makes holidays such a powerful emotional trigger for people with trauma histories. So, when we have something that is a trauma in our history, first let me start by saying, from this context, I want to speak to this idea that trauma is an injury to our nervous system. Our nervous system is a sensory experience we have in our body that will tell us whether an environment is safe or not. And so it's constantly scanning the environment for cues to determine, yes, we're safe, no, we're not. It looks for threats and it perceives threats sometimes of things that aren't necessarily real danger, but it feels like a threat to our emotional safety, our mental safety, our spiritual safety, or our physical safety. Different dimensions might feel, even the relationship safety. And so when it perceives that things are unsafe, it activates in us other systems so that we can continue to stay safe. Ultimately, sometimes what happens as a result of that experience is when we come out of the event itself or the situation, we haven't allowed our nervous system to actually release either words or emotions in the way we needed to work through the cycle of what we've experienced. And because we weren't allowed the expression of something, maybe we had to stifle something we wanted to talk about or talk through something or an expression of what we were feeling and we couldn't, or we were made to hold emotions or prevent ourselves from expressing emotions for those safeties. So when that happens, it can store in our nervous system as an injury. Now, injuries come in what I call all different sizes and shapes. It could be band-aid size to potentially even like losing a limb size, meaning it's significant impact on our life. And so that stores in our history from a timeline perspective. It can store in many ways. It can store by month of the year. So if we experienced something we're in November now, if we experienced something in November before, it could be that every year during November, our nervous system starts to feel a little dysregulated. We might feel a little anxious, a little tense, and we're not sure why sometimes. Even if we've done some healing work around it, our nervous system, our body remembers. Um, because that tells me that there's still some healing left to do of that nervous system. It senses that we're approaching something that we perceive as a threatening time. It can also have connections and ties to what we call land, meaning certain locations. And so, let's say you celebrate Thanksgiving. So, every year for Thanksgiving, you go to a certain house. And even though you've done maybe mindset work or mind therapy work, even around reframing your thoughts and working through some things, you might have an emotional tie, a trauma tie to the land itself, meaning to that exact location. And your body can sense when you are returning to energies in certain places. We feel when we're outside, outside of houses, there are different signatures that the earth has from an energy perspective, meaning the trees and the bushes and the plants and the amount of water there and all those things. There's a signature, a frequency that they can measure at different places. That's why some people feel extra relaxed when they're in the mountains, and some people feel extra relaxed when they're at the beach. So, when our bodies return to places in which it perceives that energetic signature matches what happened to us, it can activate our nervous system. And then it can also be activated when we're talking about relationships. Anytime we know we're going to be in an environment where a certain maybe person, family member, or non family member is present, that we maybe are the trauma occurred around or with, we might be activated. So, our sensory memory is that trigger sometimes to say, this is not healed. When we experience that nervous system dysregulation, it's a sign to us that there's still healing left to do. So a lot of um, tumultuous energy happens around holidays. We are trying to come together, and here's why that kind of lands is this idea that that trauma and gratitude and holidays and relationships, what is one of the crossroads of those four things, or the commonalities, or is this idea of connection, expectation, and emotional safety. And so we have an expectation, even if we are not cognizant of it, that things are going to go a certain way. We may think they're going to go terrible, and they do, or we may think that they're going to go amazing and they end up falling apart and going terrible. And so I like to remind clients that when we have a bar of expectation and reality is vastly different, that space in between there is where we fill up with intense emotions. So when we're experiencing holiday expectations, there's so much in entertainment world that sets this parameter for this amazing experience. It wants us to experience joy and sentimentality and peace and light and fulfillment and ultimate connection. It portrays ultimate connection with family and friends. And so it sets it as this really energy high of a great experience. And there are times when that happens, but there are times when it doesn't. And so if we have not processed those emotions in between there, we have that memory now that's essentially reactivated every time we come up on that holiday if we haven't worked through those things. And so starting with this idea of what are actually my expectations? What am I expecting of myself? What am I expecting of the situation or event that I might be walking into? We have multiple holiday celebrations coming up. No matter what, faith or community you're part of, if you live in the United States, there's quite a few here, but there's a celebration of Christmas or a version of that that's held around the world. And so this doesn't just have to be for the holiday season, but this holiday season coming up for like November and December, this could be any holiday season. And so it's important to remember, what are my expectations? Um, Giving myself this idea where I don't necessarily have to lower my expectations, But if I can kind of give myself some more parameters or reframe around what's going on, it's that I allow myself more space for that connection to occur or for emotional safety to happen. So, when I think about that, one of the other questions that came in really is specifically tied to this month of November is this idea of gratitude. Gratitude really is a powerful thing, a powerful tool in our toolbox. It's not the only tool. And so their question was, how does trauma affect the way we experience or express gratitude? And I love that question because the default setting for so many people is to say, hey, it's November. We need to express our gratitude. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with the overarching theme of doing that. I also think that um, it's really important that we not just default to using a tool that may not be the best for us. And so, what I would say to you is you have to know first and foremost that you are in a place of emotional safety. And so, if you are coming out of an extreme experience with a traumatic event, or you're still in that very what we call strong injury phase or a triage recovery phase, don't force yourself to just go have gratitude. That's lingering on this idea almost of being the toxic positivity. If I just am grateful, things will change and shift. And that's not accurate because, in a lot of ways, you're bypassing this idea that you need to express or experience healing. And so, part of what needs to happen first is knowing that you are grounded in your body, that you're aware of what you're thinking and feeling, that you're emotionally regulated. It can be a powerful tool on the process of healing. When we use gratitude, it can rewire our brain, but we can't be stuck in a place where we're dysregulated consistently. If we're feeling that anxiousness, that tension, or maybe that, when we think of a stress response, the fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and then there's also flop is a trauma response, is kind of like lay over and play dead kind of concept. Um, if we're really stuck in one of those states, truly, and I don't mean in and out where we sort of feel it and can use our strategies and come out. I mean truly stuck in that dissociated freeze state, or we're in a true flight state where we're feeling like just extra disconnected, where we're going, place to place to place to place to avoid that calm sensation. Then we need to think about forcing ourselves to just be grateful in that moment is actually not acknowledging where we're at. So, the powerful example I guess I could give you of this is you can't be running in the woods to try to get away from the bear and be like, I'm just so grateful I can run. I'm just so grateful that I have a place to go. I'm just so grateful that I have legs. Your body's going to be like, are you crazy? Are you listening to yourself? Stop using all your extra breath and extra energy to just be grateful. That is forcing ourselves to not acknowledge the experience that we're going through. And part of the reason we sustain injury in the first place is because we have been bypassed. Our emotional safety and connection has not been acknowledged. We didn't have the capacity. In that moment of being in those stress responses, our goal is to get our nervous system back to some regulation. It is the process of starting to use tools to regulate our vagus nerves, to regulate breathing is a powerful tool. A short breath in and a long breath out. If you're really feeling that anxious, nervous tension and you're stuck in that response, a simple thing, a short breath in, long breath out. I say we're blowing out candles, but the candles is like 100 of them on Aunt Jane's cake. So we're going to take a long breath out. When we're able to take a long breath out, what happens in our nervous system is we're sending the signal, I am not being chased by a bear. We cannot go and go and go and go and go and not exhale. So it's important for us to really think about this aspect of, am I in a space where I can practice taking a short breath in, long breath out, allow my system to find some nervous system regulation and get to the place where I am actually intentionally um, allowing myself to exhale, allowing myself to experience some regulation. Once my body's calm, I'm out of the woods. I'm ready to take a breather, to take a pause. I've collected myself. I'm really looking at, hey, it's safe to breathe. It's safe to do things. It's safe to pause. It's safe to connect. Then and only then can I actually use gratitude? Because then and only then is my nervous system and my brain pathways going to anchor it in a way where it lands, where it sticks, where it heads in the direction of rewiring things because I'm doing it from a grounded, safe place. And so I would just challenge you to think about, as you walk into these things, trauma can impact how you express gratitude, but forcing yourself to make this expression will not serve you if your body is still activated. And we're going to talk more about what's happening and how you can navigate this after we get through this commercial break. So stay tuned for what's coming next.
Everything we're made of contains light. From the sun that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. It all starts with your body and a little help from light. Place one LifeWave X39 patch on the body. Apply the patch to clean, dry skin in the morning. Patches may be worn for up to 12 hours before discarding. Keep well hydrated while using this product. Harness your natural potential. Reclaim youthful energy. Live long, live well, live young with LifeWave X39. Be the light. LifeWave.
Have you encountered a situation or an event in your life that's caused you to feel stuck? You were on a journey to live your best life, but thoughts and feelings from the past keep showing up and has caused you to feel like you're not headed in the right direction or being the best version of you. Meet Jessica Hammock, trauma recovery and transformation coach. Not only will she teach you about emotional and mental health, she's here to help you unwind the treasure of who you are from the trauma of your past so that you can walk in the truth of your identity and break free from what is holding you back so you're able to nurture the best version of who you're meant to be. The time is now. Let's get started. Okay, so we left off talking about this idea of making sure our nervous system isn't just heading straight into toxic positivity, but we really are grounding into a sense of safety. So the next question that actually came in is this: why do relationships often feel more strained or complicated during the holidays? Our nervous system actually does something called nervous system mirroring. And so I used to teach theater. I'm going to tell you a bit about that idea of when in theater, we would talk about this idea of mirroring. And it was a concept where we would have two people stand across from each other, and whatever one system did, the other system did. And it was this idea of connecting to each other. It was kind of a silly little exercise, being incoherent, right? But our nervous system actually can mirror another person's nervous system when we're in the same space as them. The Heart Institute in California actually measured through different technology that we can feel somebody's heart energy field up to 6 feet away from us. And so, oftentimes, what happens is we get into the same space as somebody else and we mirror what their nervous system is doing. So if they're in a really dysregulated state and they're not paying attention to their dysregulation, oftentimes our nervous system can be pulled into their nervous system. Maybe they're extra tense because of their own trauma, their own relationships, what's going on with them. And so if we're not intentional to process or aware of every time I go around so and so, or every time I'm in this environment, I feel dysregulated, and begin to take an inventory, we can very quickly start to mirror patterns that other people are showing us without recognition. It's really interesting if you're in a group of people, how this happens. Somebody will reach for a glass of water. And if you pay attention, if you're sitting in proximity, it's amazing how many other people close by them will also reach for a glass of water at the same time. It's that mirroring impact. So, because I reached for a glass of water, some of you and your brain, if you're watching this right now, are triggered to say, oh, I need a glass of water too. We do it unconsciously, like we're not consciously aware of what we're doing. And so, this nervous system mirroring can happen quite quickly if we're not paying attention to it, which can lend itself to all of a sudden we're like, why are we feeling this way? What's wrong? What? And then what happens typically is the thought spiral turns inward. What's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? I can't handle this. I need to be gone. I'm broken. Blah, 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 blah. Or we let this little runaway train take off with all of these thoughts, trying to solve this nervous system problem that we're experiencing, the dysregulation, I should say, not a problem, but the dysregulation, instead of beginning to separate and ask ourselves, is this my feeling? Am I feeling something from my own internal triggers? Or am I actually mirroring someone else's emotional dysregulation? I have a saying that I use, well, actually, my colleagues and I use it in a lot of our settings. It's share your calm. When you are working through trauma and when you are working through nervous system regulation, you can find those techniques, and I'll share some later, that can help bring you to that nervous system regulation. But when you walk into the room and you're able to share your calm, your nervous system is not, they're mirroring you then. They can mirror you instead of you absorbing them. Because ultimately, then what happens when we are mirroring what they're showing us, what somebody else might be showing us, we can hit a level of emotional mental fatigue. All of a sudden, we're worn out and we have no idea why. We didn't actually do any physically demanding things, but just being in the space of that can drain our nervous system capacity. It's like in your phone battery, there are certain applications that actually drain your battery faster. And so in this case, it's like having, if you're in a room full of people that are really dysregulated or there's dysfunctioning, um, it can create a lot of emotional pull. It's like having all these applications running in the background. And so all of those things are, um, you know, happening and can lend itself to extra strain and extra pull on our nervous system. And so it's really important that we work on the grounding, we work on our nervous system regulation again to navigate these places. This grounded idea. Did you catch that this pathway that we're on? Okay, so our next question is, how do we think about this idea of our nervous system and the role it plays in our ability to connect and celebrate? Well, as part of, um, again, this reconnection back to healing and safety, our nervous system has to hit certain cues in order for us to find places to connect with gratitude and celebration. So, finding those people to co regulate with, it's if you've ever learned to play an instrument, sometimes a teacher that is teaching you how to play an instrument will say, "Follow my lead." And so co-regulation is you being present with another person, whether it's a therapist or a coach or even a support person, in which they're doing something and you're doing it with them. You're co-regulating your nervous system. You're learning the skill in which that what we call the parasympathetic function feels like. How do we regulate that? And so trauma recovery, a part of that is being able to get to a place where you've found co-regulation and you know what internal safety feels like. You know what it feels like when your nervous system just kind of lets go, heals, and relaxes itself. And when we find that, then we can begin to send our brain in the direction we want it to go. Like, I'm so happy and grateful that I found ways to regulate. I'm so happy and grateful that my feet touch the floor and I have warm socks on. Simple things that we can be grateful for in those moments that aren't vastly outside of the safety that we're seeking. Also, in addition to that, is looking for little things to celebrate. And the simplest way I can think about this is um, sometimes during the week, what I try to do, and I don't always do it, and I sometimes I do it very messy, is I will make put the grounds in the coffee filter and put that make sure the coffee pot is fully filled with water and put the grounds in the filter and put the filter in the coffee maker. So in the morning, I just have to press start, or sometimes I'll even put it on the timer. And so the next morning when I wake up and the coffee's brewing, it smells amazing. I love coffee just for the taste of it. I love smelling coffee. It's one of my sensory pleasures, I guess you could say, um, is I will begin to smell the coffee. And I say to myself, today's Jessica is grateful that yesterday's Jessica decided to put the steps together to make coffee. And so I celebrate this idea that I thought ahead and I planned this little step to make my morning a little smoother or a little bit better. And so that recognition, that celebration is something that we don't do enough of. Um, Outside of gratitude, it's a powerful process. And simple celebrations can sometimes be the most impactful. So, celebrating that you got out of bed today, sometimes celebrating that you took a shower, celebrating that you maybe went to the grocery store, celebrating that you did laundry. It can be simple things that we celebrate. It can be amazing accomplishments and wins that we have. Maybe celebrating that you're on a path to recovery and you were able to read something or watch something and your nervous system stayed regulated. Um, I have some clients that celebrate simple wins where past relationships where they will see the person's name, they will hear the person's name, or somebody out their children will mention like an ex and they might hear their name and their nervous system doesn't go into dysregulation. Their heart doesn't palpitate. They don't begin to feel tense. And so they were celebrating. I have several clients who celebrate this idea of, I was able to hear their name and I didn't react. Internally, I was not activated or triggered. My nervous system wasn't sending me cues that I was unsafe. And so celebrating some of those simple things can be the most powerful. Celebrating sometimes that you make decisions. When we are coming through a trauma experience and coming through the healing journey of a trauma experience, and that mental emotional fatigue is very heavy with us, it can be difficult to make simple decisions. What clothes am I going to wear today? What is the style of my hair? What is What color am I wearing today? Where am I going to go for this event? What am I eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? All of those things that are a lot of times when you're in a regulated state don't seem like they take up a lot of emotional energy. But when you're recovering from trauma, simple decisions like that are can feel like we have to move mountains to make them. And so celebrating when we're able to make any kind of decisions or any kind of movement in the direction that we're looking to go from healing kind of gives our nervous system a reminder of like, oh yeah. So when somebody, for example, let's say somebody has broken their leg and they're on what we call a physical health recovery journey. And full recovery means that they're able to return to all activities as normal in their daily life. So, on that pathway to recovery, someone who's broken an ankle may have to, maybe they have surgery, maybe they have to wear a cast or a boot, maybe they have to have like a little scooter, maybe they have to do physical therapy, they might have crutches. All these different things are happening along a recovery journey. And it's kinda easy to celebrate the markers of that, like, "Oh, I'm healed from surgery. Oh, I'm out of my boot. Oh, I'm released from physical therapy. Oh, I can put weight on it. Oh, it's not swelling." And we celebrate little markers of healing. And when we celebrate those, it's because we're on an awareness that healing is happening. But so many times, individuals that are on a trauma healing journey or a mental health journey where they're working through some of those things don't pay attention to the little markers the same way. Oh, I'm not wiping the counters like I'm being attacked. I'm able to wipe the counters from a relaxed spot. Oh, I'm not rushing around to try to get everything done a certain way and make it look perfect because I'm in my own space and can take my time. Oh, I so part of this navigating this healing recovery pathway and this nervous system regulation and giving ourselves these safety cues is really this idea of celebrating those small things that we are doing now that maybe were once difficult to do, celebrating small actions along the way, celebrating being present in spaces without experiencing the disruption. So think about, make a list of things that you can do now, maybe you couldn't do yesterday, and celebrate it, acknowledge it. And then if you have so many of them, allow yourself to decide on how you want to celebrate these things. Sometimes it's a simple verbal acknowledgement to celebrate, and other times it's like, no, I need to go anchor this in. Maybe I'm going to purchase something. Maybe I'm going to call a friend and talk about this celebration. Maybe I'm going to treat myself to an experience that really anchors in the fact that I'm celebrating this. So many people use celebrations when you think of like a birthday. They'll go to a restaurant or a special occasion. They'll be like, "Are you celebrating anything?" And it's really powerful when you can go and they say, "Are you celebrating?" "Yes, I'm celebrating XYZ." Even if it's out of the norm, it's okay. It's your story and your journey. So begin to celebrate and enjoy that so that you're able to find those connection points. Now, when we are thinking about that, what are some ways that we can think about this idea of trauma informed ways to create holiday traditions that might feel safe and nourishing? So, thinking about, what am I wanting to say yes to? What am I wanting to say no to? And giving ourselves some actual time around working through what no looks like. So we might need to write down a script or some talking points if we're opting out of something for our boundaries or our emotional mental fatigue, and giving ourselves some space around how we're making that decision. What does feel good to say yes to? Maybe when we want to say yes to a small event, but no to a larger party. Maybe we want to say yes to dinner, but no to the experiences and times after dinner. Every person has to decide what feels good. Some people say, "Hey, I'm willing to have breakfast with you, but I can't come to family dinner." Or I'm willing to meet with you to exchange gifts, but I can't be present with all the people for this holiday. So, really thinking about what do I want to opt into for social moments? It's okay to opt out of things for nervous system regulation and healing. And then thanking yourself for participating in things, being grateful when you can show up, and thinking about how do we want to ground ourselves from that place? How do we want to provide a sensory experience, excuse me, that's relaxing to us? Sensory grounding can be smells, sights, touches, things that help us regulate our nervous system for those experiences that we are going into. And we'll be right back after a break.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness, Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, and the hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. It's time to unlock your inner glow with Coolness. Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
Have you encountered a situation or an event in your life that's caused you to feel stuck? You were on a journey to live your best life, but thoughts and feelings from the past keep showing up, and has caused you to feel like you're not headed in the right direction or being the best version of you. Meet Jessica Hammock, trauma recovery and transformation coach. Not only will she teach you about emotional and mental health, she's here to help you unwind the treasure of who you are from the trauma of your past so that you can walk in the truth of your identity and break free from what is holding you back so you're able to nurture the best version of who you're meant to be. The time is now. Let's get started. And we are back. So we left talking about this idea of experiencing nervous system or sensory grounding and regulation. And so if we're going into an event and we know that certain smells relax our nervous system, maybe having access to those smells on the way to the event. We've chosen to say yes to the event, but we want to practice regulation before we get into the event itself. So sometimes having an essential oil or maybe something else that is, it could be a small swatch of fabric that has that scent attached to it that we have access to. There's different different essential oils that actually help alleviate certain emotions, but it's important to know what provides us that sense of comfort and safety. So if, for example, there's a certain fabric softener or a shampoo or something like that that is calming to your nervous system, have a small bottle of it in your bag that you can take with you and kind of smell. It triggers or activates your nervous system to calm down, to relax, because that is the smell that you associated with it. It could also be that sensory touch for you that helps your nervous system stay regulated. So if it's something soft or maybe something scratchy, having a version of that accessible to you, maybe in your pocket. I know some people carry a little trinket type thing in their pocket, like a smooth stone or something else that they can rub on that gives their nervous system a cue that says, hey, it's okay, we're regulated, we're relaxed. So having those sensory grounding pieces can really provide your nervous system with a signal that maybe you can't actively say out loud at those moments. And thinking about what is it? Maybe it's that you have a certain type of chewing gum you use or a type of mint that you carry with you that taste for you is a relaxed taste. And being aware from a taste perspective, if you're going into parties or events, that there are maybe certain foods that are activating to your nervous system. So finding the language around declining some of those things before you go. There's plenty of resources out there to kind of find language if you don't have access to a coach or to a therapist that you're working with. Is using Google or Chat GPT or something like that to even say, what is a polite way to decline a food that is unpleasant for me from a sensory experience? And there's many ways that you can communicate that. I would just encourage you to find one that you feel most aligns to you, and really be thinking about your alternatives so that you're not saying yes to things to avoid the. Sometimes we say yes to things to avoid the explosive response or the uncomfortable response or the comments back to us, but then we sacrificed internal safety. And so we really want to think about that perspective. So, what are some signs that someone is in a survival mode versus a connection mode during the holidays? Well, we've sort of talked about this idea that there are um, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, or flop. And so, what when we think about that, do we actually have um, this idea of how we might navigate those places where we're stuck in those, and really being aware of um, the patterns of what the things are that are triggering us versus connecting us. So, from an example of a fight thing, we could be, I was looking at my notes to make sure I found all the ones I wanted to give you earlier. Is, if we find ourselves snapping at a family member or something about a small comment, like, oh, you always do this, or you're always that way, and allowing like just reacting, that is some idea where our body feels like we have to respond, we've been pushed and now we're fighting back. And so our normal goal during a fight response is to reclaim what we feel like is being lost from a control or safety standpoint. And so our body may tense up. We might feel like heat or adrenaline rushing through our system. We might find that our fists are a little tense, or we're tensing our muscles, or maybe your toes and your shoes are tensing. But just feeling the need to argue that you're right or that you're safe, and feeling it may also be that if you've made a plan for how to stay safe and how to work through things, now all of a sudden you feel that is jeopardized and you're feeling irritated that plans changed. Why do they always have to do this? Or why has it happened that this has to happen, or this changed and I was. So when you're irritated at that, that is a fight response. Like, you want to get back to that. And sometimes even taking control. If you're like, nobody else can create safety for me, so I'm going to create safety and I have to have every detail perfectly planned out, perfectly executed. There's no way for us to control everybody else. We can only control our own responses and reactions and how we show up. And so if we believe that we are going to lessen a trauma experience or lessen an uncomfortable event by taking control of things and perfectly planning it out, we ultimately are in a fighting back response. This idea, if I plan it or I handle it, nobody can ruin it, simply is not accurate. So when we're in those practices, thinking about how we're able to kind of release that um, idea of being in control of other people. So I can be safe and be in control of me, kind of reminding ourselves that. But muscle tension is a technique that can use up the extra energy that's produced during a fight response. Our nervous system sends surges of adrenaline, and it's enough for us to fight to get our way to safety if we're really in danger. It's not meant to punch our relative in the face because we're angry at the situation or we feel like we're losing control. So, punching people and punching walls isn't what we're going for here. However, if we tense our muscles really tight and hold them for a count of 10, it can use up all of that extra internal energy that's desiring to fight to get to safety. And it allows our nervous system to go into that relaxed exhale posture. So, but when we're feeling so much energy and we're just like, oh, it's difficult to say, take a deep breath or just calm down, because that really aggravates people more. They want to punch you in the face more. So instead of going with this, just calm down, just calm, it'll be okay. Just take a breath, calm down. Don't use that strategy. Use the strategy of using the energy. And sometimes it means doing the little growl that I just did. That can actually give our vocal cords in this area using up energy when we feel like we don't have the words to express what it is that we need to. So simply going, "Ah," can help us use up that extra tension in our body so our nervous system can come back into a place of regulation. Another one often is the flight response, where we're trying to escape the danger or run as fast as we can or get away from the discomfort. So we might feel restless or jittery. We might feel like our heart is racing or we have shallow breath, or we might just feel like this urgency to go do something. I just need to do something. I just need to do something. A flight response can actually be somebody who maybe cleans a lot and very like quickly they're just moving around doing. That can actually be a flight response. So in the holiday season, what that can look like is staying too busy to avoid any emotions like over cleaning, over hosting, overworking, over committing to all the things. We're fleeing this idea of danger or discomfort. Like if I'm still, or if I'm, oh, I can't go here. Or instead of committing to like one event, we've committed to four within a 4 hour window. And like, oh, I can't stay here long. I got to go. I got to get on to the next thing. Can't stay here long. So sorry. I just popped in to say hi. When we're pushing ourselves to those places, it's difficult for our nervous system to find safety. Sometimes we also do it by avoiding difficult conversations or uncomfortable conversations, which is different than having predetermined boundaries of things for emotional safety. So it could be, instead of setting a gentle boundary like that's not open for discussion or I don't want to do it, when somebody's bringing something up, we're like, I think I'm just going to go help in the kitchen, or I got to take the trash out, or so and so needs my help to do something, right? The classic examples we see in the movies in entertainment of how to escape things. But that's not necessarily sending the signal that we're safe. It's just an escape term that we use. So using a boundary term would sound more like, that's not open for discussion right now, or I'm not here to talk about that. Things that communicate, we're not doing this right now, kind of thing. And if you continue to have this discussion, I will remove myself, is a conscious choice as opposed to an avoid it technique. Feeling anxious and kind of want to dipping out early, or even scrolling through your phone to disappear when things feel tense. Back in the day before we had phones with us everywhere we went, it was kind of like, no, I'm going to just take a book. I'm just going to read a book. I'll eat dinner at the event, or I'll talk with somebody for a little bit, but then I'm going to go sit on the couch and read. So we're like in the event, but we're not really participating. So giving ourselves space to regulate our nervous system by, first of all, pausing, feeling your feet in your shoes on the ground, orienting yourself to the room can be really helpful. And so when we think about orienting ourselves to the room, it can be simply looking around and kind of challenging ourselves. Okay, how many red things can I find in the room? Or I want to find 5 red things. Okay, I want to find 4 blue things, and 3 green things, and 2 yellow things, and 1 orange thing. You can choose what pattern you're going in, but finding colors. Or maybe you start noticing the pattern texture on the carpet or the rug, or starting to notice the different textures in the room. Simply paying attention to small details is sending cues back to your nervous system. Hey, we're safe, we're good, we can navigate this, and we don't have to avoid it. We don't have to leave it. We don't have to flee it. Now, when it comes to a freeze response, our core idea or drive is to just be still. If I don't move, then the danger will pass. I'm just going to be as still as possible. And what our body might feel like is we get numb, we can have a foggy brain, maybe we feel detached or unable to act. And so, what that might look like in a holiday setting is checked out. Maybe you're smiling, you're going through the motions, but you're not really present. Maybe nodding along to things that you disagree with. Maybe you have an internal dialogue going on in your head, but you're just like, yeah, huh, yeah, okay, uh-huh, sure. And you're giving verbal cues, but you're not actually connected to that agreement. It could also be frozen in your car before you go in, or even frozen in your car in your driveway before you leave to go. Just sitting there, like, and in your mind can still be going, but it's as if your body cannot move. It's resistant to what might be coming. And then feeling maybe physically or emotionally stuck after something is said. Like you just kind of dissociate and shut down. So, how do we get out of a freeze state? Is, well, we can give ourselves information. It's okay to move at my own pace. It's okay to find safety in moving slowly. But slow, gentle movements can actually help give our nervous system the, if I do these gentle ones, then I can do maybe bigger ones or then I can move because nothing is happening. So, for example, sometimes just sitting and wiggling our fingers, just simple things. Now, you don't necessarily have to put them on the air. They can be just on your, you could just do it on your legs where you have your hands on your legs and you're wiggling your fingers back and forth. And another one is just gently tapping, sometimes tapping each side. Cross body tapping is really powerful because it sends a signal to both sides, just kind of give yourself a little hug and tap. Now, if you're sitting in the middle of a party doing this, may draw some attention, but if you're in your car, just giving yourself some taps, it's okay to move at my own pace, you know. Um, then moving into stretching, some bigger movements. They don't have to be fast, but just bigger movements can give ourselves some space to move more into what we desire instead of being stuck and frozen. That's ultimately what we're going for, is getting out of the stuck and frozen state. If you can find something warm to hold on to, that sensory experience of heat kind of activates movement inside of our system and moving through things. And then one of the other responses is the fawn response. So the core drive with the fawn response is really thinking about pleasing or appeasing to prevent rejection or conflict. So this might feel like words stuck in our throat. If it gets very tight, maybe we feel tension in our stomach. We're forcing ourselves to smile, but we often agree with things that we don't really align with. We verbally agree, but internally we're in conflict. So saying yes so people don't get upset, apologizing for things that aren't our fault, or just apologizing. Even if nothing happened, there's no accident, there's no upset, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And then laughing off things to keep the peace, like hurtful comments people might make, changing our opinions to our behavior to stay somewhere where we're liked and accepted. So just pause before we agree to take on yes connections. Really taking time to take slow breaths before we respond in to things, and really giving ourselves this idea of, I can be kind and still keep myself safe. I can be kind and still keep myself safe. So I want you to think about, it's okay to name what's happening, name your response. It's okay to offer your body cues of safety, like your breath, your movement, your grounding, your calming sense. It's okay when you feel settled to kind of choose connection. That's where we choose celebration, where we choose grounding, where we choose to move forward with what feels good to us, and kind of instead of pushing ourselves to do these things. Gratitude and things can still exist even when we have grief and trauma and other things we're healing from. We can still choose gratitude. We can choose connection, and we can choose laughter and joy. Those aren't things to be negatives. We're in the space of thinking about how can we repair even if it's not perfect. Listen, you don't have to do this alone. If you want to hear more about working with me, you're able to reach out to the contact information on the screen and really thinking about this idea that you are part of a collective. If today's episode spoke to you, don't go it alone. Book your free consult with one of our expert coaches at chronichealthcollective.com for your personalized support. You can subscribe to our monthly magazine for expert tips from 14 coaches to elevate your health, your mindset, and your relationships. You can also catch us live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. or watch past episodes on E360 TV or youtube.com at Chronic Health Collective. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Your transformation starts now. So we hope to see you next week.